I got here because I lost sight of who I was. I got here because I trusted the wrong people. I opened up to people I should have never opened up to. I let people who had no business accessing me from that level be in my inner circle. I stayed in places where I was not celebrated but tolerated. And forgive me if I get a bit emotional, but this series has been a healing thing for me. Hey beautiful, welcome back to the Reclaim Circle. And here we are healing, we are breathing, we're taking up space, and we're rebuilding piece by piece. And today's conversation it's a deep one, right? Because I want to talk about who you were before the abuse. And if you've been with me throughout this Unmasking Abuse series, we've spoken about the mask of a good partner. We've spoken about hidden signs that sometimes we miss. We've spoken about the big question, why don't you just leave? And spoke about the safety that is needed when you finally decide to leave. And so today, in trying to find out who you were before, I don't want to sit with the you who has learned to survive, not the one that has learned to shrink herself and to silence her voice. I don't even want to sit with the you that has learned how to take out the gems one after the other from the beautiful crown on her head. And I want to sit with the authentic, real self of who you were before the abuse. I'm talking about her, the one who existed before all these things touched your life. And I want to ask a question right now. Have you ever thought and questioned who you were before you started questioning yourself? Before you started doubting? Before you started shrinking? I remember I've always been a tall girl, okay? I was quite tall for my age. I stand at a beautiful 5'11". And of course, sometimes, you tend to stand out even in situations where you don't naturally plan to. And when I was a teenager and I was just coming into my femininity, because of fear, because of things that were said to me, I started hunching backwards in a bid to hide my chest. And it gave me really poor posture. And as an adult, I've hunched forwards, but not really to hide my chest, but I've hunched forward to hide my strength. I've hunched forward to minimize my ideas, to bite my tongue. Sometimes I know that I have an answer to something, but in a bid to not come out so bright, because you've faced a lot of criticism and there's that second guessing yourself that has already been introduced, then I feel fear whenever I have to put out my ideas. And this is not me. Anybody who knows me on a personal level, they'll tell you a few things about me. And one of them is that they'll tell you I'm very straightforward. And they'll tell you that I'm confident, right? But after going through years of abuse, years of being made to feel as if you're too much, years of being mistreated as if you don't exist, I realized that I have learned to keep quiet. I've learned to ask for bare minimums you know. And if somebody does bare minimums, I react as if it's such a big thing. This did not just happen in one day. This is something that it took me a long time to recognize. And I remember it was last summer where it just hit me. I was having a conversation with somebody, and it hit me that, for lack of a better word, I've been in the desert. And so when somebody dangles a drop of water in front of me, it seemed as if they were giving me like a whole gallon of water. That is what abuse does to you. Abuse slowly erodes the core of who you are, and it introduces you to a version of yourself that is smaller, that is, what's the right word? That is, I'm looking for the right word for this. A version of you that is just not you, because the doubts and the second guessing has already been introduced. But what I learned, or what I have been learning through this healing journey, is that I never disappeared. The real me never disappeared. The real me has always been within me. I was just covered, I was just buried under everything that I was going through. And I was forced to adapt. I was forced to adapt to what was going on around me. Because the truth of the matter is, I needed that version of me to survive the situation that I was in. And therefore, it doesn't mean that I'm different. No, it just means I adapted. I needed to adapt so that I could survive the conditions that I was being handed at the time. One of the questions that I've asked myself is, how did I personally, how did I get here? And some of the unraveling, I've done it myself, and some I've done it in therapy, and some I've also done it in prayer. And I realized that I got here because I lost sight of who I was. I got here because I trusted the wrong people. I opened up to people I should have never opened up to. I let people who had no business accessing me from that level be in my inner circle. I stayed in places where I was not celebrated but tolerated. And forgive me if I get a bit emotional, but this series has been a healing thing for me. I stayed in places where I was not wanted, but because I had no place to go, because I didn't have enough finances, I had to stay there. I stayed in relationships where I was not loved, I was not respected, I was not appreciated, but I stayed because I lied to myself so much. And it reached a point I started believing those lies. I stopped seeing myself as that beautiful, confident, charming, intelligent, strong, amazing woman that I know I am. This reflection didn't happen in a day, and it has not been an easy reflection. But I assure you, it's one of the best things that I ever did for myself. Underneath all of that survival, chaos and tactics, the real you is still there. The real me is still there. I'm still bold. You're still soft and feminine. I'm still intelligent. You're still playful, expressive, and trusting. Whatever she was real. And I know that for some of you, going back there is really hard. And I've had this from a lot of people who say, I don't even remember who I was. And that's okay. I also didn't remember who I was. I didn't do this in a day or in 2 days. I did this over a period of time. And it's one of the best things that I ever did for myself, because I have been able to reclaim my voice, to get back my voice. And I love how beautiful my voice sounds to me. I love how strong my voice is. It's just, my voice has never left. It has never left. It was just buried under whatever was going on. And so I want to gently invite you into something.